Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch Want, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at a real treat. This is the S.p.A. Journe Octa Chronograph Flyback, 38mm in platinum with a yellow gold dial. This is a significant, pioneering, and discontinued reference from the S.p.A. Journe catalog. Now, S.p.A. Journe, although a long-time watch restorer and commission watchmaker of note, founded his eponymous company in 1999. So S.p.A. Journe, the company, is created in 1999. In 2001, he launches the Octas, his first line of automatic winding, handmade wristwatches, and this, the Octa Chronograph, with brass movement, was manufactured between 2001 and the phase-out of the brass movements in 2004. This watch, which you can see being 38mm in platinum with the gold dial, is only 11mm thick. It wears like a classical dress reference, but it has that characteristic S.p.A. Journe asymmetric dial that's inspired by tradition, but not slavish to it. And on my wrist, which is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, it looks as good as it feels. Just sublime. This is a really special timepiece. Not just because it comes from S.p.A. Journe, a watch manufacturer still run by the man whose name is on the dial, but because Journe, even today, at its peak of production, makes about 800 watches per year. Back in the early days, 99, 2000, 2001 through 2004, production was much, much lower. Now, back then, perhaps just under 2,000 watches of all descriptions, not just the Octas or the Octa Chronograph, but 2,000 watches of all descriptions were manufactured with the brass movement. Of those that came in the platinum case, most actually featured the rose gold or the white gold dial inserts, so to get this one with the brass movement and the yellow gold inserts is an exceptional combination rarity. And it really feels beautiful because the lugs in a 38mm case can be expressed fully. They can flare out. They don't have to hew too close to basically the flank of the case, because the watch isn't so huge that if you extend the lugs, it won't fit on a human wrist. So Journe can give this watch powerful lugs that really make a statement, that have tremendous definition. Now you can see that there's a case character line that runs longitudinally, and it flows outboard and blends into the lug at each extremity. You can also see how the watch doesn't push the limits of my wrist at all. My wrist could be much, much smaller, perhaps even under 5.5 inches in circumference, and this watch would still rest quite easily on it. Now, S.p.A. Journe does a nice aesthetic job of integrating the strap with the case by using semi-conforming spring bars, and I'll give you an extra note about those in just a second, but you can see how they pare the gap between the strap and the case down to a minimum, such that it's difficult to even pick up the gap, despite my abundant light in the light box and the proximity to the iPhone. You can still see that it almost looks like a conforming strap, but it has the flexibility of a conventional pin bar strap. And the other nice thing about the pin bars is that they are of the quick release type. S.p.A. Journe understood early on that if you're going to make a watch on a strap, you want to give people the option of swapping it out easily without endangering those hand-finished platinum or gold lugs, depending on the model. So Journe did all of his owners and watchmakers a favor by making the straps easy to swap out. Now you can see alligator on the top and very beautifully finished, calf skin on the bottom, so very soft. A full single deployant clasp. Now it is a hybrid clasp, so the high wear portion, the actual buckling portion of the clasp, is in 950 platinum, and the rest is in 18 karat white gold. Beautifully crafted like the rest of the watch. It is a feature of the watch, handcrafted, hand-finished like all others. It just speaks to the quality and attention to detail that Journe puts into this watch. And let's take a look at the dial. Now, yellow gold inserts surrounded by polished, hand-finished white gold surrounds with a silver dial base. This is a look that is unique to S.p.A. Journe, absolutely individualist. You can tell that he's referencing the pocket watches on which he got his start as a watchmaker, working in his uncle's shop in Paris during the mid to late 70s. But while it references pocket watches, and remember, his very first watches that he built, including his first tourbillon, were pocket watches, it doesn't look like any particular pocket watch, nor is it necessarily of that era. It's more of an anachronistic look that's individualistic to S.p.A. Journe, everything down to the very shape of these cobalt blue hands is unique to Journe, and the asymmetry of it, in addition to being a little nod and a wink to the pocket watch era, has become a Journe signature in the modern era. Invenit et fecit. He invented it, he made it, it's his vision, and it's designed to express the fact that Journe is not just the man who designs it and engineers it, but F.P. Journe is a completely integrated manufacturer. They own everything from the facilities that make their cases to the facilities that make their dials. So, short of Journe's Geneva-based neighbor Rolex, there aren't too many watchmakers that are more completely involved in the manufacture of their timepieces and every piece that goes into the timepiece than F.P. Journe. And then on the back side, this is the other half of the equation, the other half of the story. Now this is the Octa automatic movement. These automatics, the Octas, are all of roughly the same geometry, being about 5.8 millimeters thick, about 30 millimeters across, with a slightly off center. You can see there is a little bit of a gap between the case and the rotor. Again, it's asymmetry, it's deliberate. In Journe's case, it's supposed to make you do a double take, as if the finish weren't enough. But the bottom line is the Octa movement, with 120 hours of power reserve, automatic winding, entirely hand-assembled and hand-finished, is a masterpiece in its own right, just as beguiling as the dial itself, and just as emblematic of Journe's engineering savoir-faire as the dial is of his artistic savoir-faire. One item that I want to highlight, not just is it a long-duration movement with 120 hours of power reserve, it is a true flyback chronograph, so you get that extra counterintuitive element of complication. It's not something that's actually declared anywhere on the case. Nowhere does it say flyback, so it's important to note that feature ahead of time lest it get lost in the shuffle. Also, a double digital jump date, so it's got a grand date feature. This is a surprisingly complicated and nuanced automatic caliber. And when I say that it is surprisingly complicated, I want to emphasize that there's a lot going on here, and Journe deliberately styles his watch to appear more simple than it is. The closer you get to this, the more you see going on, specifically at the level of finish. Now you can see the balance cock with the free-sprung regulator, very contemporary, very durable, but there are little nods and winks to the true connoisseur in the finish of this movement. The first and the most surprising is that when you get down to the level of the anglage, of the découvrage around the individual screw sinks and the jewel sinks, you notice that it was self-consciously finished to show evidence of the watchmaker's file. That is, the connoisseur who actually completed the anglage on every single one of these bridges and cocks left just enough evidence of the file itself to show that each piece was touched by a human hand. It's almost like the rustication of concrete on modernist buildings, in which industrial processes could make the finish so perfect that it looks like it had been wrought by a machine even when humans were involved. But although some prefer the blinding, rounded, mirror-type anglage, Journe leaves the watch just a little bit rougher to show that the artisan was there. And likewise, there are details that are significant and a little bit unconventional. For instance, the screw heads themselves, in each case, are black polished, and that's the only evidence of black polish anywhere in the movement, except for the actual escapement wheel teeth themselves, which are black polished, but you have to get right down into the escapement area to see it. Now you can see the chattering away of the escapement wheel and the pallet right there. Likewise, there's only one part of the movement that is straight grain dressage, that has that brushed linear grain, and it is actually the pallet bridge just below the free-sprung index. This is an impressive, highly detailed piece that begs you to get down among the bridges, get down among the balance springs, the drivetrain, the oscillator, and it really rewards close viewing. Other unique finishing traits here are the use of clou de Paris guilloche on the 22-karat gold winding rotor, circular Côte de Genève on all the bridges. The watch is quite nicely finished, but it's finished in a tradition that is distinctive of F.P. Journe. Rather than the blinding flash of, say, Patek Philippe or Vacheron, Journe has gone for a finish that's evocative of old-style watchmaking, back when fine finish was a matter of pride, not a self-conscious matter of vanity. Hence that little hint of the watchmaker's tool being left in place. Hence the sparing use of features like black polish and straight-grained dressage, and only in the detail in and around the escapement itself. This is a beautifully subtle watch, beautifully built, and exceptionally rare. As one of perhaps 2,000 Journes of all descriptions to have been made with brass movements, watches like this are now the darling of the auction crowd. As of 2015, Journe is phasing out the 38mm traditional size case as well, so this watch is becoming something of a compendium of discontinued FP Journe features. The 38mm case, the brass movement, the very Octa Chronograph model itself having been superseded by the Chronograph Souverain in 2006. This is an outstanding example of a watch that is only going to gain in collector interest and collector esteem. Check out this FP Journe Octa Chronograph, Journe in-house caliber 1300, 38mm platinum, yellow gold dial, black brass movement on our website, Watch You Want.